And now to help us navigate through the possible domino effect the Greek vote may have on the global economy, we are joined by Professor Mason Richey from Hankuk University of Foreign Studies. Welcome to the program, Professor.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Right, Professor, some experts warn if this self-inflicted financial tragedy continues, economic hardships and social tensions await. But the people of Greece seem quite resolute in their decision. How do you see this game of chicken, if you might call it, playing out?
Well, I wish I knew for sure. In all seriousness, we're in uncharted territory. Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras called this referendum gambling, that a no vote would strengthen his position going into possible new negotiations with the so-called Troika. If the European Central Bank cuts off funding the emergency liquidity assistance to Greek banks, they'll be both insolvent and illiquid, at which point Greece will have to most likely introduce a parallel currency, a scrip, in order to pay its employees, in order to pay its contracts and those types of things. And that would be, practically speaking, the first step towards a Grexit.
And it's not so surprising now that the eurozone is in the tailspin after the people of Greece gave a loud and clear no in response to the bailout terms. What are the possible political and economic consequences for Europe?
Well, they're huge. If Greece's creditors return to the negotiating table and offer a much better deal for Greece, you're going to find some of the other weak economies emboldened in the sense that playing chicken, as you put it, is the right strategy. Spain, Portugal, Ireland, some other countries have gone through some painful austerity measures, and they may be, for instance, emboldened in the future to elect more left-oriented governments, which the European establishment is not very enthusiastic about, obviously.
The Professor, European stocks and the euro have dropped over fears that Greece may exit from the euro currency bloc. Asian markets, including Korea, have slid. What do you think the extent of the fallout will be, especially on Europe?
Well, Greece is, of course, in terrible shape, and so kind of whatever comes out of the situation, whether it be a deal with austerity or whether there's a Greek exit the eurozone, reintroduce the drachma, default on its debts. For Europe as a whole, I think increasingly you're finding both politicians and economists simply saying, let's chalk up the losses, let's learn our lessons, and let's at least get some certainty in the markets going forward.
And Korea was not an exception in the global market slide. The government actually discussed a possible contingency plan to prepare for the impacts of a potential Grexit. Although many expect any effects to be limited, some say Korea is not completely immune. What's your take?
My take is that that's largely correct, that the short-term measures to shore up the response to volatility in the forex markets and also in the equity markets in Korea is useful. There may be some investors who will want to pull money out of economies like Korea. Some people have talked about the global sell-off in markets over the last week or so, and in particular in China, as being connected to the Greece situation. And there may be a little bit of truth to that, but I don't think that the Greece situation will ultimately, in the long term, make much of a difference in the global economy, or in the Chinese economy, or in the Korean economy, and in fact in Asia more largely.
Okay, thank you so much for your time, Professor Mason Richey. We do hope to speak to you again sometime soon for your insights in this matter and something else. We hope you have a pleasant trip to France, and we hope to see you soon.
Yeah, thanks very much for having me. I appreciate it.